Okay, so I'm live in Caesarea Maritime. This is Caesarea, where Paul was in front of Festus in Acts, and Festus sent him off back to Rome to face Caesar. And this is pretty amazing. This was actually, this entire facility, all of Caesarea Maritime, including the harbor, including this theater, these were all under sand until just the 50s, I believe, 1950s. So quite an incredible find here to see this and to see the Bible come alive.
Chapter 23 through 25, the story of the Apostle Paul as he comes and he spends his time literally appealing to the regional governors. And we see, first of all, in chapter 23 and 24, Felix, and then in chapter 25, his predecessor who preceded him after him was Festus. After 2 years, here Paul.
So again, here in Caesarea Maritime, the harbor would have been on the other side of that jetty there, which would have been a pretty amazing sight back in the day that Herod built. And down right here below us, I don't know if you can see it, is the hippodrome. So this would have been the Roman hippodrome where the chariots would have gone around, and you can see the seating on the rear side, but there would have been seating also on this side that was washed out by the waves at some point. Pretty amazing history. So this will be a video for Wyatt because I just found two awesome lizards. I don't know if you can see them. You see them right there? Cool lizards, huh? Big old lizards. And I'm not sure Wyatt might be able to identify which kinds they are. Okay, they ran away. Pretty cool. So this is the aqueduct that used to feed Caesarea Maritime. It ran 10 miles. Amazing. So now I'm standing on top of Mount Carmel, and this is the mountain where Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal. And I thought this was very interesting because the view up here is just absolutely phenomenal. This is just an incredibly huge, beautiful valley, and you've got towns like Nazareth directly ahead, and some other areas, in fact, including the mountain that they said that the Transfiguration would have taken place on, the Pishon River down there somewhere. Anyway, it's beautiful up here. Wish you guys could see it in person, but hopefully this will help. So this morning I'm down at the edge of the seashore on the Sea of Galilee. I thought you might want to join me. This is us on the boat when we are going through the Sea of Galilee. We just passed Capernaum. We're going to Gennesaret. Water's beautiful and not expecting a storm, hopefully. Look at this. Look at these birds going around our boat on the Sea of Galilee. They're swarming. Amazing. Look how many there are. I've never seen this. So now we're in Capernaum, and in front of us there is the synagogue from Capernaum that Jesus would have gone into. And then these are what are the houses for the people in Capernaum. These were called insula, and they would grow depending on the size of the family. And then down here below us is the place that is supposedly Peter's mother-in-law's home. And Jesus was said to have lived in this home, in this room at some point. Okay, so we're in Bethsaida, which is a recent find. It was not the last time the preacher that's here with us came. I think it was, 8 years ago. He said this site had not been uncovered. So this is a new site. This is Bethsaida. And Jesus came and did many miracles in this area. And so this is one of the houses. And you can see here it's got a wine cellar. And I'm not sure how the archaeologists separate these rooms specifically, but this is supposed to be a kitchen area. Okay.
Following you.
I don't see a kitchen island or a refrigerator, but you get the idea. There's some reason the archaeologist said that was a kitchen. And then over this is a bedroom area back here. It looks like it was separated into maybe 2 or 3 sections here. That's where people lived. And then this was the courtyard directly in front here. So this would have been semi-open to outside. Pretty cool. So Jesus did a lot of miracles in Bethsaida. And one of the biggest things that happened in Bethsaida is the feeding of the 5,000. And so we're in that location today. Pretty cool. Okay, so right now we're above Bethesda, which is the city that was recently excavated. And the cool thing about this site is that the river delta for the Jordan is straight down the hill, straight below us. And I don't know if you can see it in the distance out there, but that's the lake, the Sea of Galilee. So the river delta is right here below us. So it used to be that the river and the lake came right up to this area. So the feeding of the 5,000 took place somewhere right here around Bethesda and Bethsaida, I'm sorry. And so there's an area right down there where the water is down below and it raises up, but it looks like were houses there. But if you turn and you look right directly behind here, you see that huge hill? Now you tell me, but I tell you what, that looks like the place where the feeding of the 5,000 would have taken place. 100%. Awesome. So just real quickly, we're in Bethsaida, right? Okay, the sun is setting right now. I want to show you this because the feeding of the 5,000 was in this city. Look right behind this city. Look at that. You tell me that's not where it probably would have been, the feeding of the 5,000. And again at Hazor, this would have been where the front gate would have been. And something very special about the time period of these remains is during Solomon's reign, they began to build 3 rooms to either side of the front gate to stop anyone that was breaching the gates. They would have soldiers inside each of these rooms. And so, as you can see, this one has 1, 2, and 3 rooms on each side. And we'll switch over and you'll see them again over on this side. 1, 2, and 3. And what a view they had here. And if the Egyptians came up through the land, they would come up from the south. And if the Assyrians came up through the land or came down through the land, they would have come south through this valley. We're coming up to Mount Hermon here. It's on our right. It's around 9,000 feet.
By some
And all the
cactus
water
plants.
in Israel is fed, or almost
The
all of it
ranger
is
who
through
used
that
to
Mount
run
As we're walking through these paths up in Tel Dan, we're seeing all these little headwater spring areas where the water is coming in and pouring down into the Jordan River. And this is the primary headwaters for the Dan River, which becomes the Jordan River. This is one of three headwaters that creates the Jordan River. And as you can see, this water is just coming straight out of the ground. It's a spring, and it's fed by the mountain above. So it's very pure water. So anytime you see this three-margin stone right here, where it's on the top, side, and bottom, that indicates that Solomon or his sons built it. So this area right here was built by Solomon and his sons, possibly Rehoboam. We're at Tel Dan, and we're at an old Israeli outpost here, and we're looking at the mountain above, and that is part of Israel now. It used to be part of Syria. This area is part of Israel. It used to be part of Syria. And then that town up there is part Syria, part Israel. This is the entrance to the city of Dan, or Tel Dan, and had some significant walls and structures here providing more security. And just inside that opening there was where the king would have sat, and the different people that would have been important to the city would have been in there as well. All right, so we're at one of the other sites where the Jordan River begins. There are three different sites where the headwaters are. This is one of the other sites. More in a few minutes.
And Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." You see right here in the disciples, Peter got the answer right at this time. The denier that we'll see in Jerusalem actually has the right answer, that he is the Son of God, the living God. And here he confesses in a very pagan area where all the other religions of Greek and Roman gods are represented. And he says that Jesus, you alone are God. And then Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." Now notice, first of all, you is in the plural. He's saying it to Peter, and he is probably saying it to the disciples as well. But secondly, when he says, what does it mean when he says, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades, or hell, will not overcome it? What does this mean? So first of all, Peter in his very name means what? Rock. And so he's talking about the apostolic authority, that on the rock of Peter himself, that they will build, the church of Jesus Christ will be built. And remember, this is in the context of all this Greek mythology and paganness. And then he says, "I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." Well, years ago when I came here with Wheaton College, I had no idea what that meant. What does it mean that the gates of hell will not overcome it? Why did Jesus use that terminology? Well, I had a professor of archaeology, Al Hurt, that brought us to this very same spot. So this is something I received, and I want to just pass on to you. So in this area, this is called here the grotto of the god Pan. Remember, Pan meaning the Greek god all, representing all gods of Greek mythology. And in here there was a pool, and actually in Jesus' time they actually tried to measure the depths of it. Now you have to picture it now. They actually tried to measure how deep this grotto, or this where there was water in this place actually was, and they could not get to the bottom of it. It was, in that day, it was immeasurable. And so this very spot became known as, can you get the gates of hell? And so now think about it, that Jesus himself is God, He's just asked for the confession of who do people say I am? Who do you say I am? This is in the context of before all other gods. And Peter, they say, people say John the Baptizer, some say others, you're a great prophet. And Peter gets the confession, you are the Son of God. You are God, he said. You are the God of all gods. And Jesus said, you're right, and I will build my church on you, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it.
So this is Caesarea Philippi, and this is where Peter acknowledged that Jesus was the Christ. There's the cave, and that cave used to be full of water, apparently. But what I wanted you to see down here is all the water that comes out of the wall from down here that starts the Jordan River. There's all kind of stuff down here. These ruins are really amazing. Look at the sheerness of that cliff. But this is more of the headwaters of the Jordan, and they basically just come out of the wall down here. You see, we're just walking over the ground here. Walking over the ground. And straight below, just water coming out of the ground. All the way across. And all the way across. You can see up there very well. Just comes right out of the wall. And then we're on the mountain at the edge of Israel and Syria. The Syrian border is right here, right about where my finger is. And Damascus is right there, out in the distance. Not every day you get to see Syria, especially from this height. But I thought this would be an interesting thing for us to have on video. Right below us, as you can see, we really are on the border here. These are the bunkers right up on the hill. And now we're supposed to be entering the village of Nazareth, what it would have looked like back in the day. These are olive trees here.
We need to find them water, right? It apparently has to be still, otherwise they're so flighty they won't drink. Watching them, guarding them against wild animals.
Hey guys, where are you going?
Like to carry either.
Where are you going? Where are you going? Huh? Where are you going? So we're in the Nazareth village, which is a non-for-profit group that has sort of set up this village. It's about 5 to 10 minutes walk from the original village. And what we're looking at here is actually an archaeological find that they found when they started developing this plot. And what you're looking at is a groove in the stone that would have been part of a wine press. And the primary wine press is this large cutout here, which is beautiful. So you'd have several people in this large square or rectangle stomping on the grapes, and then it would go down through this opening and it would fill up wine skins down in this area.
Outer
So
stairs
Joseph is
easier.
going to do the bow drill for us, but here are some of the tools that they would have used. And here's the bow drill. And that's what we would use today as a drill, but in their day, that's how they did it. Thank you, Joseph.
You're welcome. God bless you.
God bless you.
Of a first century synagogue of its kind in the world. We have used only the materials that they had available to them 2,000 years ago. We've got stone, we got wood, and we've got earth. No, this floor is not made from concrete. It is mud mixed with lime and ash. Plaster on the walls, what you're sitting on, the layers above the reeds and the roof, everything natural materials mixed together in different proportions, and therefore really high maintenance for us. We have 7 columns, stone columns. This is on purpose. The number 7 in the Bible is the number for wholeness, completeness, yes. The corner storage room over here, where we believe they kept jars like these, where they stored their scrolls to protect them.
Now we're entering the Church of the Annunciation, built by the Catholics. This one was most recently renovated or rebuilt in 1950 to 1960. And many of the original buildings of Nazareth are said to be under this building. This is supposedly the house of Mary. Don't know how accurate that would be. This is what they supposedly would be. This is the Church of the Annunciation, and as you can see, there are gifts from several different places all around the world where churches had works commissioned to the sides here. That one directly in front of us is the one from the United States.
Covered by branches and earth, the cave where was the stable for the animals. The 2 columns we put now to support the cave, that means they are not originally there. Behind the pillar or the columns, we can find a hole or a ring, one to the left, another one to the right, where they tied the animals.
Put them overboard and wanted to force him off to the precipice and then throw him down the hill. But right after he reads this prophecy from Isaiah 61, he says this, and he would take the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat next to him. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fixed.
This is the Jezreel Valley. So this is Bethsaida. This is a Roman city. It was built and I think it was destroyed in 400 BC. Anyway, the city above it, the Tel, is where the cities were built one after another on top of each other until it couldn't be built on again because it was so small, and then they started building below. And that's what we're looking at down here, is the expansion of that city below the Tel. This is Bethsaida, and this is the city, the Roman city that was actually finally destroyed. Actually, it was in the 700s AD, I believe. Bethsaida is where King Saul and his sons were both hung on the side of the wall. And the men of Jabal Gilead came and took them down off the wall. And that was directly up on top of that hill that we're looking at right there. And that tree up there was actually in the movie Jesus Christ Superstar. Very cool place. And we're going to go up there. We only have a few minutes, so we're going to do that quickly. Climbed up the mountain of Bethsaida. And we're standing over the Roman ruins in the city.
Oh yeah,
It's a beautiful sight.
amazing.
And the audio carries so long from here. Beautiful. All right, we're now at the River Jordan crossing site. Not a crossing site, the River Jordan baptismal site, which is where they believe that Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. And I don't know if you can see how the sun is beautifully coming through the clouds. It's gorgeous. And the people on the other side over there, those are people in Jordan, and we are in Israel.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Southern bus.
This is Qumran. This is where the Essenes stored the Dead Sea Scrolls for us to find in the 1900s.
Wherever you see faster, there would have been something in a channel that carried the water, or when they're back.
Every book of the Old Testament, except for Esther, was found in these caves.
Over 900 partial or full manuscript from what we would call the Bible, the Old Testament. Let's say Daniel writing his letter, his book, we would call it, that he actually, it was inerrant, without error. And in the original manuscripts, which we call the autographs, which we don't have, but we have them going back to where? Second century. So it's amazing. This is an amazing discovery. It validates the truth of the Word of God, and so that what we believe is really true, and it exalts the true God of the Word.
As a group, we went up to this cave right up here. I think you can see it, right? Yeah, we're right there. We climbed up into that cave. There are other caves, including the large cave over there. That would take us quite a bit longer. To Masada. Now we're above the plains down below, and if you see out directly in front of us is the Dead Sea. So the saltiest area of the Dead Sea is going to be down on this end, because that's where it ends, and up above would be the least salty, and that's where the Jordan enters. And we are going to go up on Masada.
Half Cohen, priest. Cohen means priest. That touched me most of all because it shows the tenaciousness of the Jewish people. We lost our hill, we lost our temple, but we're still here 2,000 years later, as demonstrated by the tenaciousness of those people who were here. Okay, let's go on. Any questions about this?
All right, and now we're entering the bathhouse in Masada. This is the courtyard, and then the frigidarium, which would be the coolest room in Masada. And then we're going to be entering the temperate room in Masada. And this is the sauna room. What's interesting here is these tiles. Actually, you can see over here, this would be a tiled wall over here, right? But what you couldn't see on that side is what you see over here, which is that these are actually open, columned tile. So the hot air goes from the floor, which as you can see is raised here, off of wherever they're creating the heat, which would be a fire. The floor actually would be heated, and then the heat would go up through the tiles around the side. Really, really innovative. So this is the 3 levels of Herod's palace, the northern palace. And then this is General Silva from the Roman army. That's his camp. And I'll work on getting you another view. So there's the Roman camp. And then this was the ramp. I don't know if you can see it directly down there. And then this would be the top of Masada. So you can see they had a long way to go. This is the Roman siege ramp where they came directly up. And you can see how close it was to here. And this is where they broke through.
Jesus comes and he becomes ultimately the great shepherd king. Well, you say, well, what? Jesus a shepherd king? Wasn't he a carpenter or a builder? And the answer is yes. But what Jesus in his earthly ministry, when he launches it, he claims that he is, as you know, the good shepherd. And just a few passages that we want to look at this morning is that Jesus becomes that ultimate, if you will, shepherd king, who ultimately, David, it was a great king over Israel, but yet he fails, right? He fails in sin with Bathsheba. He murders even her husband Uriah, the Hittite. And he fails in his ability, certainly, to keep the law and to satisfy God with his obedience. So there has to come a greater king than even King David. And it's ultimately, and who was also a shepherd, it was Jesus. And so here on the shepherd's field, we know here in Bethlehem, again, that Jesus was born, received his grace. And the message of good news is fulfilled by this good shepherd himself, who laid down his life for sheep. Jesus was born to become the great shepherd king, to die on the cross on our behalf. And so today, with whatever you have in your life, we come to once again by faith say, thank you, Jesus, that you are that great shepherd king. And in the end, we fast forward all the way back to the final book in the New Testament, Revelation 16 and 17 says, never again will they hunger, never again will they thirst. The sun will not beat upon them, nor any scorching heat. Look at this beautiful verse 17. For the Lamb at the center of the throne will be their shepherd.
Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. So now we are in the fields of Bethlehem. Bethlehem, the city of David, David's hometown, and also the birthplace of Jesus Christ. This is the Church of the Nativity that we're going into now. And we're in the sanctuary area of the Church of the Nativity. And as you can see, it's interesting. It's almost like they have Christmas balls at the bottom of all the chandeliers and lights throughout. There's a huge restoration taking place right now. The ceiling is 500 years old. And beautiful in here, really. This is supposed to be the place in Bethlehem where the cave was, where Jesus was born. And this is supposed to be the location of the manger.
Pieces are stretching each other. If you take any of these pieces off, slowly it will be all destroyed. What you see where you see the wooden pieces, there is more from that mosaic. Look at the pillars that they are restoring the images on it. And we saw already how it looked like when it was covered with the smoke of the olive oil candles when we were queuing inside. If you want to take some pictures here, please, then let's look at the
There were many legends in that day, and this is one of St. George slaying the dragon. This is the wall, and we're going back through to the Israel side of the wall. You see the wall here.
All these, what is worship? What do I mean? What should I be doing? That automatically.
Bethlehem is in the Palestinian area, not in the Israeli place.
And ever as they sang, methought the voice of angels from heaven in answer rang. Methought the voice of angel from heaven in answering. Look to your left. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, lift up your gates and sing, Hosanna in the You can wait with the pictures. We'll get off. We can?
Just one section of the wall of Jerusalem. So you can see it's very large. And now we're at the Garden of Gethsemane, which is part of the Mount of Olives. But this is the garden itself. It's a small area. It's not large. This is the church at the Garden of Gethsemane.
Even in this, maybe in this little devotional testimony, and just try to listen to what God has to say to you. So let me just pray for you, and then let's try to not. Let's try to go be alone and not, with just our own thoughts for these next several minutes. So God, we praise you for the way that you work belief and faith in us and do strengthen our faith. Lord, thanks for working.
This is another section of the Garden of Gethsemane. And we've been allowed in this section. Most groups are not allowed in here, but our guides worked very hard to give us access to this section. And the Garden of Gethsemane is basically the bottom section of the Mount of Olives. What's going on, Ishtar?
Friend,
Oh,
come
on
on.
the wall, you get Jerusalem behind you.
And now I get a good shot of Jerusalem.
The dome's right behind you. That is crazy.
Ipsy.
That's why he got you
I got
on the
no
wall.
FC.
Yalla, camel.
Come here, give me a kiss.
Oh, he's gonna give you a kiss.
Oh, Gary.
Give him a kiss, Gary. Give him a kiss.
Gary, do it again.
I tried. Playing hard to get.
He liked Amanda and he liked the girls better.
Goodbye.
Somebody needs to be over. Take a picture over here. I got it. Yeah. Over this angle too.
Don't worry.
He did everybody.
You're gonna fall.
No, sit in the middle. Sit in the middle. Don't worry.
Don't worry, it doesn't do nothing.
Is he a Russian camel?
Russian.
He doesn't want to do it, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, we're about to enter the Temple Mount. This is just a teaser trailer. It's gonna be great. Here's the Western Wall, and today's a Thursday, so they will be doing bar mitzvahs today. So that was the entrance that we just came in behind, and directly behind this wall is the Western Wailing Wall. And so we're now inside the Temple Mount. So we're on top of the Temple Mount now, and that's the Dome of the Rock. And many of these would be likely the same stones that were here at the time of Jesus. Some have been replaced, but much of this floor is still the same. And then this is a mosque, and then down below there is also a mosque. The Muslims have control of the top of the Temple Mount at this time. The Temple Mount, and the upper area here is where we are. The entire Temple Mount is approximately the size of 25 soccer fields. I think it's 480 yards by 280 yards, something like that. This is the mosque in the middle. And, it's called the Dome of the Rock. And the reason that the Temple Mount is here is because this is Mount Moriah. This is also the mountain where Abraham would have come to sacrifice Isaac.
Up here that the bedrock is exposed. The Muslims call this the Dome of the Spirits. It lines up perfectly with all the bits and pieces that people over the years were able to dig up, and it lines up with the Golden Gates, which is wonderful, isn't it? It makes it, wow, we have a solution to the problem. The Jews.
The guide said that this is the remains of the earthquake when the temple veil was torn. You can see it almost made this entire tunnel fail. We're entering the Western Wailing Wall area. This is the closest point to the Holy of Holies that the Jews are allowed to go to at this time in history. They're not allowed, again, up on the Temple Mount for the most part. They can go up one at a time, but that's it. All right, this is Bonnie, and she has been our tour guide. And so this is her talking to us just for a minute about herself.
I just want to tell you what a pleasure it's been to have Lonnie in the group. He has been so much fun. His beautiful voice, he's being responsible, he's bringing up the rear for me. It's made my day. I've had to work half as hard as I might usually work if it wouldn't be for Lonnie. Thank you, Lonnie. You want to know about me?
I want to know about you.
I was going to go in the Peace Corps from UCLA, had an Israeli boyfriend. He said, every good Jew has to give more than just money to Israel. You should give sweat. So I decided I'd come to Israel for 1 year, do my thing for my people, and go back home. And I came here, and the minute I landed, it just felt right, and I've stayed for the last 51 years.
Yes.
Had a wonderful life here, dated the cream of the crop of Israeli society, married a brilliant scholar who goes all over the world talking about the Middle East. We have no children. We didn't have time for children because he was constantly having to write papers, publish or perish. I was guiding. We're glad we don't have children to bring them into this horrible world. And but we have a very good life. And I enjoy so much being with groups of tourists. I learn so much from everybody.
Well, and we've been honored to have you as our tour guide, and we just ask that God bless you and keep you, and know that you are loved.
Thank you.
So we're right up here right now, and we're going to go across here, and then we're going to go down in here, which is outside the Temple Mount, but this is actually the city of David right here, this whole area. And that's where we're going. And at the bottom of the wall now, and what we were noticing is just how large some of these stones are. Individual stones that are, look at that, that's probably 20 feet long. Amazing. This is the Temple Mount, and it goes down an additional 7 layers of these blocks, which is a good ways, as you can see, probably 25, 30 feet. And then it goes all the way up, and the original walls went above that cedar tree. So, incredibly tall.
My prayer is that
This is where Jesus spoke.
as we come out of this trip, again,
Talked to the Pharisees and called them whitewashed tombs.
all of us would know more of God as a result of being here. Not just having some great pictures, maybe even some great memories, and some great opportunities, sights and sounds. That's all well and good. That's fantastic. But that may he continue to change and
Now we're walking into the city of David. This would be, I believe it's just south of the Temple Mount. And we just came out of the Palace of David, which was right in there. And this is the top of the city of David. So straight ahead would be the Palace of David. And then what's interesting is here was part of Hezekiah's wall. Right here. And then look around, and there's the valley below. And the Gihon Spring directly in front of us. Right. And this is how Jerusalem began, because it had to have a water source.
You get it, Lonnie?
Go ahead, tell us about it.
Okay, straight ahead of you here, that is the wall from the time of Abraham. And over my shoulder here, there's another entryway. This is the original entryway to the tunnel here. And this is the tunnel the women carried the water up to the city.
Okay. From the Gihon Spring.
From the Gihon Spring, yes indeed. Warren's shaft about the time of King David and Solomon. They didn't want to keep walking to the bottom, so they drilled a straight down shaft to the water. And it's, you need to look down there. It's not 3 feet. It's This is David's palace, King David's palace, Solomon's palace, and the distant part of Solomon's palace is right there, leading up to the base of the temple. This is what Solomon's temple looks like, although there's a question in the Talmud how tall it really went, and they covered up the top with clouds so they didn't want to stand. And probably want to know something on that.
This is the Canaanite tunnel. It goes in that same general area as Hezekiah's tunnel. But this is the dry route And it's very skinny. In fact, I may have to lose some weight to get through. It's unbelievable that they built this. These tunnels are not all dry as we thought. There's some wet areas in it, but not very deep, maybe a couple of inches. And it's quite a long route here. Hopefully we're getting near the end. All right, now our group is now going down here, but this is the wet route under the city of David. This is Hezekiah's tunnel. I'm just going to go right here in the opening, just so you can see. That's Hezekiah's tunnel. And it gets quite deep, so I'm not going to stop there, but I wanted you to see that it's here. So when the water would flow down through Hezekiah's tunnel from the Gihon spring, it would end up in the pool of Siloam. And this is where the water would have ended. This is the pool of Siloam. And I believe it was in John 9, as John was just speaking about, where Jesus healed the blind man and he told him to come to the pool of Siloam.
And there I met Charlotte Latham, and she is Don Latham's wife, who passed away a few years ago, actually 3 years ago, almost to the day. And so she was very influential in my Christian walk, because she'd say, Lona, you don't know Jesus, you know, I need to read the Bible with you. And I would say, I don't think so, I do know him, I'm Catholic, anyway. And so a lady who was at the school, though, called Becky Whitener, one day she said to me, Lona, I want you to come with me to Bible study fellowship. And I said, no, Becky, I don't want to go. I was sort of insulted by her, but I said, in the end, she took my key and put it in her wallet and said, today you're coming with me to BSF. So,
and this is some more of that water that was coming down through the channel, the Hezekiah's tunnel. And I don't know that this is all of it, but a good bit of it coming through that channel. That flows into this, and it looks like it continues out from there. But over here is that pool of Siloam that we just looked at, talked about from John 9. We're going into the Children's Memorial at the Holocaust Museum. No video or photos allowed. It's a very somber moment for our group. And we just went over the building and structure of the temple and the Temple Mount, and we talked about the path that we're going to be taking from the cave to the rabbi tunnel. So we're now entering the inside, underneath, in the cave area. This is a continuation of the western wall, but not accessible from the outside. This single stone is 44 feet long. Huge. We're now at Peter Gallicantu, and this is supposed to be Caiaphas, the high priest's home, and this is where we are now. And this would have been where Jesus would have been taken to see the high priest after he was arrested in the Mount of Olives. Bonnie was explaining what was special about this house is that it has a courtyard, living area, but then it also has dungeons, and most people did not have dungeons in their homes. Okay, this is the room that is believed that Jesus was put into the night before his crucifixion when he was in front of Caiaphas. And this is that dungeon area inside Caiaphas' home.
3 times. And even still, Jesus is about restoring deniers. And he brings a And he comes, and you remember when up in Galilee by the sea, remember that? And that right after in John 21, he has this conversation with Peter, and he says, you know, Peter, all of that denial, I forgive you. And he says, feed my sheep.
And this is the church above. This is the, I'm not sure what the name of this church is, but it's really beautiful. Arched, domed building all the way around. And this is the area that was identified as the room of the Last Supper for us. So this was a Crusader church, and the Israelis actually rebuilt this one, and it's understood that the Roman Praetorium was directly underneath this, and that would be where Pilate would have sentenced Jesus. So we're going to take what our tour guide believes is the actual real Via della Rosa. So we're going to do that. This is part of Hezekiah's wall, 2,600 years old, and look how wide it is. Pretty amazing. Continuing the Via Dolorosa, these peach-colored stones denote the old wall of Hezekiah, and then the black stones denote the walls of the city at the time of Jesus. You can see here's the wall. It stops right here, and then it's up here. So this is where the garden gate will be. We're going to continue out towards the garden, or goes out to the right. And now we are at the place of the skull, Golgotha. We are actually right now looking at the north side of the Temple Mount, north side of Jerusalem. And then if we look over here, you'll see the place of the skull directly above. And then we're going to go directly to the garden tomb. I believe that directly above is where the crucifixion took place. This is what is being identified as the garden tomb of Jesus. I'm going in. And this is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And we're going to go in. The second location given to us as a possible location for Golgotha. This is inside the church, and the top of Calvary is supposed to be directly under there. I don't know if you can see it. This is the rock where they prepared Jesus' body for burial. There's an image of what it would be. And this is the area where the actual tomb is supposed to be. So this is the secondary location, or primary location, depending on who you are, the location where the tomb would have been. The line's pretty long, so we're probably going to skip waiting for this. It'll be several hours in single file. So this is one of the other churches directly connected to this area. There are, I believe, 5 churches directly connected into this Church of the Holy Sepulchre complex from different groups. We're entering St. Anne's Church. Apparently St. Anne's is the oldest surviving Crusader church. Then sings my soul. Praise
digging started, and then all of a sudden, wow, the Bible actually does appear in these 5 colonnades here in the pools of Bethesda
And these are the pools of Bethesda. There's the southern pool. There's several other areas in here. It's a lower cistern. I sort of think of something like that as being maybe the place where the guy wanted to get into the pool. We're about to get on the bus for the last time and head towards Ben Gurion. Our tour is over. This should be our last time to get on the bus. Say bye, everyone. Say bye. Say bye.